When customers come back and purchase from you again, they're more likely to purchase more if they come back. So we have to remember that the first sale isn't the only sale, that there are more and they will bring people to you. And so it's all how you set them up after the transaction for success.
Introducing the Vixen Voice, a podcast for ambitious women entrepreneurs ready to move into their feminine essence, live their truth, and unlock their full potential. I'm your host, April Roberts, and each week I'll be interviewing inspiring women who decided to take a leap of faith to pursue their dream. Women who believe that they were born for something bigger. Hey there, just popping in quickly. It's April Roberts, and I wanted to thank you for being a loyal listener of the Vixen Voice. It means so much to me. And because of that, we're going to be popping in these little announcements because I want you to be the first to know what's going on at the Vixen Gathering. So if you haven't done so yet, click the link below and check out the Vixen Founders Collective. The members who are already in are raving, and we would love to have you join us in the ultimate business consulting, networking, and personal growth community for Gen X female founders. See you there. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Vixen Voice. Today is going to be interesting because we're talking about one of your least favorite topics. No, it's not taxes. We're actually talking about sales today. And I joke just because so many of my clients, so many women I know tell me they hate sales, which we'll chat about. Hopefully we can demystify sales for you today. But I just kind of giggle because women are actually naturally good at selling. They just stress themselves out. So our guest today, Rachel Morgan, turned her 13 plus years of experience in the luxury retail industry, including, get this, 9 record sales months as store manager. So she took all this experience and started her own business, Rachel Morgan Coaching, where she specializes in sales training through workshops, consulting, and training. And I love this because she actually focuses on customer-facing sales, right? Like good old school sales. Everything's about digital, and not that today won't help you in your digital selling, but I like that we're like focused on the customer today instead of faceless selling. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in. So I've chatted with Rachel before and we had a great conversation. So I think today's going to be amazing. But Rachel, before we dig in, I always like to say you tell your story better than I do. Obviously, you've had a past career, you have your new business. As with many of us women, we go through multiple phases of life that really make us who we are today. So I'm curious, when you look back, what would you say is a pivotal moment or a pivotal story that really helped carve out like this amazing go-getter woman that we're chatting with today?
That is so nice of you. Thank you. I think that there have been maybe a few. So, okay, this is going to be so different than what you're expecting me to say, but I always envisioned myself working in fashion. I wanted to be in product development. And so I was like, I'm going to go work for Nordstrom, being in Seattle, and this is what I'm going to do. And then this odd turn happened where I ended up going to work for a fine jewelry company. And it wasn't something I had ever imagined myself doing or seeing myself doing. And the reason I worked for them was I wrote a newspaper article for part of my school when I was at the university, and it got published. And this article was about the jeweler. And so I got to know them that way. I ended up going to go work for them, thinking this is just a job I'm going to be in. And, I'm still going to pursue working at Nordstrom one day. It's going to happen. And I ended up working for them for nearly a decade and working my way into store management. And that's where I really learned the importance of customer service and building customer relationships and what it takes to train people and be a leader, and really learning that sales are long term. And so a lot of my knowledge, I'm so grateful for this company. It's a company that's been around for over 100 years. So you know that what they're doing, they do well. And so a great experience, and it encouraged me then to pursue something different, where I realized that I really needed to be a sales trainer, because I fell in love with showing people that sales doesn't have to be pushy and awkward and manipulative and mystical, right? And so it led me to start my business. And so I had this thought a little bit prior to COVID, and I know we all made a lot of changes in 2020, but mine happened to also be during 2020 and not necessarily because of COVID. And I haven't looked back. And so from there, I started my business. And, as we all are in our first few years of business, we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like, especially being a sales trainer, which is a little bit more uncommon. And got really into networking and building community. And that was also a huge pivotal moment of what that can look like and be. And now I'm here today. So it's amazing. Those things that you don't anticipate happening can really change your life and make you the person you are.
Yeah, I love that. And, we live in a world where volume is emphasized and quantity over quality. And it sounds like you're talking much more about quality when I hear sales, is a long term endeavor. So share with us a little bit more, like your theory on that and how you came to understand that.
Ooh, this is such a good question. Okay. I would say, we're always so focused on closing the sale, right? We get so excited when someone shows interest and they want to buy from us, or we have someone in front of us that we get this like feeling like we have to close every single person. We have to have 100% conversion. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Well, side note, when you look at conversion, like even in retail, it's like 20%. It's not 100%. It's humbling to know like you actually really don't have to close everyone, but where the importance is how you make people feel in all of that.
Yeah.
And so when we come from this mindset, we unknowingly come across as more pushy because we're so focused on pushing them to get them to buy that we forget there's a human in front of us that have needs and we're there to help them with those needs. And so through this journey, I've really seen the difference it can make when you slow down and you ask questions and you get to know the person in front of you and you realize like this is a long-term game because you're building a relationship. So, we're so afraid of being pushy, but oftentimes we're pushy by being afraid of that too.
No, I love that. And so many things are coming to mind for me. So, first of all, the 20%, you're so right. And what people don't realize is by taking the 20 to 22% or 23%, or, if you could, Lord forbid, get it to 25%, you're so incrementally increasing your bottom line, right? It's just like there's all these different needles you can move and you just have to move them a little. It's not like you have to double that number. So I love that. And I absolutely love this idea of how you make them feel because it's interesting. I know when I was switching to coaching, a woman had reached out to me and wanted me to run masterminds for her. And that's why I started with a mastermind because I was like, oh, okay, great. Well, when I sell my business, this is an easy way for me to know I'm making six figures out of the gate, right? And as I build my business. But honestly, as I was getting trained and she was amazing, I was just like, why would I teach someone else's content? Like I want to teach my own. So I gave up like that security and stability to like teach my own. But one thing she said is, I love it because all my clients are my friends. And in my financial practice, I had hundreds of clients. So I would have lost my sanity if they were all my friends, right? So this is a concept I couldn't wrap my head around. And then fast forward to coaching and my clients are some of my best friends and a lot of my friends are becoming clients. So like, I'm so glad the seed was planted. But to your point of how they feel and taking your time, when we're chatting, I'm like, look, your friendship means more to me than potentially working together. I feel like I can really help you, but I want you to make the right decision for you, which is how I always did sales before, but it's just interesting because you actually have a context where like, hey, I'd much rather have you than a friend as a client. And it really puts you in this mindset of handling things differently. So I think if we treated everyone that way, but you still have to offer what you offer and tell them how you can help them. And if you can't help them, you tell them you can't help them, right? So I'd love to hear from you. How do you help your clients or what tips can you get to like engage better with the customer where you are having that deeper conversation, where you are asking the right questions?
Yeah, I do want to say you are absolutely correct on conversion. First of all, so they say a 1% increase in conversion can increase your sales by 4%. So
Yeah.
we don't realize that one extra person that we're selling really can make such a difference. And you're right. I think with relationships, it's not like we want to be best friends with everybody, right?
Right.
But they need to feel like if they come to you, like you know who they are, like you have a connection, you're
Yes.
warm, you're inviting, right? That's the difference. And we literally, I don't even keep up with my own friends sometimes. So
I know.
life is so full for all of us. You know, you can't keep up with hundreds and thousands of people. So, but when they do reach out, are you there, right? That's the difference of how you make them feel. So, in terms of engagement, since you asked me, well, how do you engage people, right? You know, I think we actually talked about this prior, and I love that you brought this up, but your name, right? Introducing yourself is huge. We often are selling or talking to people and we don't even exchange our names, but our names are one of the most important things
Yes.
about us. And when you hear your name, it makes you feel good. And when you make people feel good, right, they have a good interaction, a good impression of you, which is huge to sales, right? You want people to feel good doing business with you. So, but it also gives permission, like, I want you to call me this, and this is how I want you to refer to me, right? So names are huge when it comes to engagement. You know your friends' names, right?
Hmm.
And I would also say, ask questions. You know, someone says, hey, I'm interested in this. Slow down and say, well, I love that you're interested. Tell me more. What led you to this? Or, you know, what's your experience been like up to this point? Or, you know, what are you hoping to get from this? Or how are you planning to use it, right? The more that you know, the better your recommendations come around later,
Hmm.
which I know we're not quite talking about that yet. We're just talking about engagement. But it's really just so strong in making people feel seen and heard and taken
Hmm.
care of in that moment, right? Where it's like, okay, she's not just trying to sell me anything, she's trying to sell me something that I actually need.
Yeah. I love it. And I love your point about names because it's something that people don't pay attention to, right? So, in our financial firm, when we had dinner seminars, I had the whole team with like fancy name tags, right? Because you don't realize people will be shy to talk to you if they can't remember your name, right? So, you want it right in front of their face so that they don't have a hesitancy. And then the second thing is, it's so funny you mentioned it because when someone's like helping me, or even like if I go get a blowout and sometimes they don't introduce themselves, I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, what's your name? Because like I want to know the person I'm interacting with during this time. And so I just think that like that name is such a jewel of a tip that most people skip over because they're nervous in the moment. And it's like, just introduce yourself. It's like super simple.
Yeah, I'm always amazed how many people are like embarrassed to introduce
Yeah.
themselves. Like it's like the wrong thing to do. And I'm like, no, like please, you know, I do a lot of networking, right? And I'm like, the best way to walk up to someone is just say, hi, I'm Rachel. What's your name? Right?
Yeah.
Like get the conversation going. And you are so right. If someone forgets your name, they'll feel shy. They don't know how to
Yes.
reapproach you, right? So it's so important, like be awkward about it. Just say, this is
Yeah.
my name again. Like and be honest if you don't know, right? And that's okay. But yeah, your name is so important. Very, very, very
Yeah.
important.
No, I love it. And I love the topic of going deeper because the other thing that you forget when you're on the selling side is like you're nervous, you're focused on the end result. You're forgetting that people aren't telling you the real story. Like they have the defense mechanism up when they come in, right? And so they're going to give you the most curt, fast response possible. And it's your job to say, okay, what's the real truth here, right? Like I feel like sales is always getting to the truth and figuring out if you can help that person. So, how do you guide your clients to kind of overcome that beginning defensiveness, or do you coach them, okay, let them be for a second? Like, how do we overcome that?
Yeah. So just kind of to remind, right? My experience is retail, so customer
Yep.
facing. So when I answer these questions, that's what comes to mind, but we can also answer them from more of a digital perspective too. So I think what's really huge when a customer comes in that sets the tone is how you greet them and acknowledge them. But this is not to be confused with pitching. Greeting is just saying, hello, how are you? Welcome in. It's saying, I see you. And looking up and making eye contact is huge, right? We've all been in a store where people are looking down and they sound monotoned, or they sound like they're expected to say it, but they don't really mean it. Or
Yeah.
you hear like this random voice from the back of the store, and you're like, where did that come from, right?
Yeah.
But we've also, on the flip side, been in a store where no one said anything to us for like five
Yes.
minutes, right? And research shows and sales psychology tells us that acknowledgement keeps people in your store. So whether you're busy or you're not busy, right, that's what keeps people in your store looking around. So it is so important that you say hello to someone just to make them feel welcomed, comforted. They know that you are there, right? And then you can come over and you can say, hi, I'm Rachel. It's so nice to meet you. Welcome in today. What's your name? Right? You don't have to pitch immediately. And that's what a lot of people do wrong is you walk into a store, right? And they go, hey, everything's 30% off today and t-shirts are buy one, get one half off. And you're like, oh, well, I was looking for jewelry, right? We're assuming what they're looking for without actually asking. And so it's okay to slow it down, right? You have to remember, like, when people are in your store, they're there for a reason. It's very intentional. Someone decided today to get dressed, get in their car, fight traffic, find parking, walk in. Like, they didn't just magically appear. It's okay to, like, slow down for a second and just say hi, introduce, and then start asking some questions and finding out what they know. And so if we're talking about, like, online, right, your storefront is your social media profile. If people are following you or commenting or in your DMs, like these are your customers coming in. So how you initiate that conversation with them should be no different, right? I mean, we've all followed accounts where we feel like we're ignored and we don't hear anything. And you're like, this person seems really active. Like, do they not see me? Do they not care? And it goes such a long way when these accounts actually reach out and just say, hey, like, I'm Rachel. Thanks for connecting with me online.
Yep.
And you don't have to pitch me. If you pitch me immediately and we've never talked, like, it feels like I'm only there to help you, but you're not actually there to help me, right? And so, anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But this can absolutely be applied whether you're in person or online. It's just how you perceive it.
Well, and I think that immediate like introduction or interaction sets the tone so much. And I know like a lot of your clients are, we're saying retail or client facing, but I mean, that's also like, I know you work with a lot of banks and different institutions, right? Where they're taking care of customers too. And I had an experience recently where I had to go into the bank for my parents. Like, when in the world do you ever go into the bank, right? And there's a long line. And then like, as I'm coming up, a teller just puts her like closed sign and walks away. Like, doesn't say a word to me. And of course I get aggravated, and literally all she had to say is, I'm sorry, I'm taking break to count the money. They'll be with you soon. And it would have been a totally different experience. I would have been like, oh, okay, go do your thing. Right. And so if we always put ourselves in the shoes of the purchaser or the customer, you've had these experiences that could have been negative, but were positive, or that were negative, right? And how did you react? That's why I'm a huge fan. I'm curious if I'm sure you do this with your clients, but role playing is huge because I love sitting in the customer seat or client seat because you can almost feel how things feel, right? Like how they would feel. And so I feel you learn so much more by playing the customer than role playing the salesperson.
Oh my gosh, role playing. It's my favorite training technique because you get to actually experience what it's like to say things and know what that feels like and get the awkwardness out before you're with an actual customer or client, right? Everyone hates it, but it is so effective. It's literally, like I just said, it's how you get all the awkwardness out. It's how you get to practice it so that when you actually go to say it, it feels more normal. You know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, totally. Like, and it's like, make your mistakes on the practice field, not on the playing field, right? Because we're all going to have off days. Like, the more you do this, it becomes like flexing a muscle, and you have different experiences to draw from. So I love it. Okay. So we walk through the introduction. Your name is so important, asking engaging questions, going deeper. What else is important in this process, Rachel?
Yeah, so, we talk a lot about, we need to build relationships with our customers. It's so important in connection. But what's actually more important is how you maintain it.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
we focus so much on just people see sales as, I just need to close the sale today, right? So I need to do all the sales psychology tricks, all the engagement to get them to the point of yes. But I actually sometimes feel that sales starts more once you close it. Because once someone has already paid you, walked away from you, said yes, things like buyer's remorse can come up. Referrals, right? Repeat business. And studies show that when customers come back and purchase from you again, they're more likely to purchase more if they come back. So we have to remember that the first sale isn't the only sale, that there are more and they will bring people to you. And so it's all how you set them up after the transaction for success. It's all how you maintain the relationship afterwards, right? We hear follow up and we think of it as just being, I need to follow up with prospective clients and customers, right? But it's so much more than that. In fact, when I teach follow up in a lot of my workshops, I have a list of like 32 reasons to follow up. Follow up can be as simple as wishing someone happy birthday, or how are you doing since you purchased this, or how did the gift go, right? Or maybe right now natural disaster, right? Checking in and making sure people are okay and safe is huge, right? And that's how you really build relationships with people in the same way that you would with your friends and your family and networking. And you better believe that when these people are ready, you're going to be front of mind because you actually demonstrated that you have their best interest in mind, right?
Well, that and also we live in a very noisy world. So, I mean, how long do you think they actually remember who you are, right? If you're not popping up all the time. And like you said, it can be in simple ways. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I was following up to see what you think about this. Like a lot of times it's just like, hey, you mentioned to me that your cat was sick. Like, how's that going? Or a birthday, or hey, did you find what you were looking for? So no, I love that. And I love this concept of the close as the beginning of the sale because there's so much to do after the fact. And it's also much more profitable to have a repeat customer than constantly be generating new customers.
It is. I made a post about this week that it takes 6 to 7 times more effort and money to attract a new customer than to retain the ones you already have.
Yeah. And, I never got that because even in my financial firm, where, in financial firms, turnover is thought to be kind of a normal part, there's a percentage. And I'm like, no, like if we lose a client, that means we failed this person and their financial plan and their dreams for the future. Like I would take it really seriously. Like you have to constantly engage them because you've made them feel safe and secure. And the moment they don't, the moment that psychology shifts, they're gone. Right. And so you have to maintain that tone and that feel throughout, which is really the game changer in business if you can do that. So I love it. So I want to dig into you were working fine jewelry for a company that had lasted for over 100 years. That's amazing. So was it always family owned and passed down, or how did that work?
Yeah, still family
Wow.
operated, five
Love
generations.
it.
They were very involved with our day-to-day operations. They wanted to get to know us. Speaking of relationships, right? They would call every single employee. They had 100 stores. Every employee, didn't matter what level you're at, on their first day and welcome them to the company. They called every single employee on their birthday and wished them happy birthday. And they would call us on our work anniversary. So even my part-time people that might work one shift a week, they still got a
Yeah.
call.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. So it's so funny when you talk about follow up too. I think it's so important in today's world to show up differently in your follow up because everyone thinks, oh, I'll send a text or I'll send an email. I mean, we're all getting hundreds of texts and emails a day, right? Like, I just think back to like old school, like when you went to the makeup counter and then you got a handwritten note within the week. Like I think makeup counters were always the best at this, like handwritten note, how's everything going, etc. And I think it has to be relative to what you're doing because when you're talking fine jewelry, they're writing a nice check. I mean, or swiping that card for a lot of money. So that buyer's remorse is a big deal, right? Overcoming that.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that because one of my favorite things to do is send a handwritten thank you card. And I
Yeah.
actually ensure that everyone I work with is doing that. And I made sure all my teams would do the same. So I think that's an excellent way to follow up, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, because think about again, how much junk do we get in the mail? Like, I live in a building, so I can sit there with the recycle bin, and like 3/4 goes immediately into the recycle bin before I come
Mhm.
upstairs. And then when you have that one little envelope that someone wrote on, and you're like, oh, someone actually wants to talk to me, like, it's freaking exciting. It's a great way to stand out.
Right. And it doesn't take much, right? You're just acknowledging that you appreciated them, right? And, I can tell you, I've seen people come in crying because we were the only place that actually sent a birthday card to them. We've
Oh,
had people become loyal customers because we did take the time to write a thank you card. And I've seen even my clients now, just from sending a few birthday cards, they've had multiple people come back and work with them again that they're kind of a subscription based type service. And so, reminding them that I still exist and sending a card in the mail and has brought people back like, oh yeah, like maybe I do need to reach out to them and talk to them again. So there's actually a lot of power in it. And like nobody cares what your handwriting looks like. I mean, yes,
no.
nice writing is good, but it's more like the thought, right? That you actually sent a card. that makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, I love it. So, Rachel, I'd love to hear what really excites you about what you do. What do you love most about your work?
Ah, that's such a great question, too. You've had all excellent questions. I just love seeing people try new things. And like, I think we get so focused sometimes on technology and needing to know all
Mm-hmm.
the newest technology, but forget that, like, just keep it simple. Like, sales does not have to be hard. It can be as simple as sending a handwritten card.
Yes.
It can be as simple as introducing yourself, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be convoluted, right? It is about relationships. And so I think it's really cool to see businesses try these little things that make such a big difference in them and have customers come back. And like I had someone the other day tell me like, wow, like I didn't know it could just be as easy as following up and just touching base with people and knowing that I can always find a sale whenever I need it most. And I'm like, yeah, that's literally what it is, right? And so I think it's just hearing those little wins and aha moments are huge. And, I think as humans too, we all really want connection. And
Yeah.
remembering that sales can be about that too.
Yeah, and people crave it more and more in today's world because we're having less of it. But I love that point. And like you said, it can be simple. And it's so funny because even with online sales or digital products, everyone wants to build the perfect funnel so they never have to talk to a person and people magically buy what they're selling or like post this magic post, which, first of all, people don't buy based on social media. They buy in the DMs, the emails, like the personal contact part. And the reality is, I can tell you, I can't think of a single client of mine that I didn't personally invite
Mm-hmm.
to become a client, right? Like they got engaged through all that, but it's that personal invitation to become a client. People forget to tell others, hey, I'd love to have you as a client. Like it's really that simple.
Yeah. If someone's going to hand you money to be in your program or work with you as a coach or whatever, you better believe they want to talk to you, right? And so, just piggybacking on what you said too, I think oftentimes we hear the word sales funnel and we think that it's
Yes.
sales, but it's actually more of a marketing funnel
Mm-hmm.
because you're attracting people in. You still have to convert them, right? And what you said is getting them into the DMs, right? And having those conversations. So you can put up the posts and they should work for you, right? And they should market and they should attract people. And naturally, you will always get people who buy. So there are people who still buy without interacting with you. But you have to still learn how to convert these people and have conversations at some point, especially doing a lot of what you and I do, right? If they're going to be working with me one on one, I better be talking to them and learning how to, right? So,
Right.
but you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
No, I love it. And, for our business owners out there listening, what is the best way that you find for them to motivate their sales force? Or maybe there's not a single best way. And how much do you usually encourage leadership or ownership to share? Because I'll share with you one time I shared with my advisors, do you know every first appointment you have cost X number of dollars? And they were like, and like it was crazy. It was like something clicked in this one advisor's head. And then she was like, almost like imagining like she had to write me a check for that amount for every first appointment. And then she took it so much seriously because, look, usually you're commission based, your income's tied to that, but you haven't spent the money to get the lead in. So it's a different mentality. I don't know how to explain that better, but like, you have to be careful because you want to make a safe space for your team. You want to make sure they're set up for success. So like, do you coach your clients often on like how much to share, what to say, how to motivate, etc.?
Yeah, it's absolutely huge to sales performance, right? Is how you set your
Yeah.
team up. So, I mean, truthfully, I think that it starts on day one on how you onboard them and the expectations that you set in terms of like, I will be training you. And so
Yeah.
get used to that, right? But also like being a safe place for them too. So I think, when it comes to motivating a team, take the time and learn their love language. I know that sounds so funny.
Yeah.
Love languages are often appreciation languages. And when your team feels appreciated, they're going to stick around and work harder for you. So there are free quizzes online that help you get those answers. And it can be very eye opening. Personally, for me, I tend to be very words of affirmation and gifts. So as a leader, I'll be like, you're doing so good. Like, I appreciate you because in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm calling it out. I've seen it and I do appreciate
Yeah.
them. But to those that don't speak that, they're like, okay, but can you help me maybe? Or give me a pat on the back. And so that was huge for me is to learn that with my team. And once I was able to do that, I saw them work a lot harder And so I encourage you to do that. And I do encourage you to post numbers and share them. Your team, if you expect them to reach goals, they need to know where you're at all times and where they are at. And so whether, I highly encourage one-on-ones with your team members. Take them out, go grab coffee, sit down with them, ask what's going on in their life, right? Set their goals with them, ask how you can help them reach their goals, right? But also publicly share it in your back room so everyone knows how they are with each other. And I know that's scary, but I mean, that's how you create teamwork, right? You can see where your team is at and how you're going to work together. And like you said too, sometimes it does take a moment of sitting down and breaking down monetarily. This is what's costing you, right? When it's not in front of us, we don't realize, or we think, oh, I'll just get the next person, right? But every interaction is time spent that you could be doing something else, right? So be honest with them, communicate with them. I don't think you can over communicate with your team, right? Let them know what's going on so that they feel confident and part of the process with you.
I agree. And I love how you said, I'm going to train you, get used to that, because we take for granted how many people just get thrown in the fire and they don't get trained, or how many people don't have a structure or a rhythm to meeting with their teams. So with all my coaching clients, I'm like, if they have a team, because some of them are solopreneurs, how often are you meeting with your team? What do you mean? I meet with them when I need to. No, we need a rhythm that they know, and like an agenda for that meeting and a set process. And it's crazy. It skyrockets businesses just putting that rhythm and structure in there, because it is true. Most places are not doing these things. And it's like, it's kind of these simple things that you can implement. And it just, as human beings, I'll never forget the first time I went to a Tony Robbins things, and he's like the 7 drivers of human beings. And now, and so human beings are driven by security and also uncertainty, right? Like they want a certain level of security to know how things are going, but then they want excitement in their day too. So like, how are you providing both for your team? Like they do want that certainty and that stability.
And I would imagine you're probably listening like, okay, that's great, but I don't have time. I'm busy running my business. And so I would really encourage you to look at your schedule and schedule it into your schedule.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be that day. You can put it on your schedule for a week or two out, and then your employee knows that you're going to take a moment to train them. And they love it, right? And they can think about what they want to bring to that as well. So we often have more time than we realize sometimes, or we're already doing the things. And so it's just kind of creating structure, like you said, around it. So put it on your schedule.
And you can't afford to not take the time. And if you need a better structure, by the way, click on the link below and download your Vixen CEO calendar, and I'll walk you step by step on how to fix that calendar so you have time for it. So I love that. No, I'm a huge fan. But like you said, it might take 2 weeks to work it into the schedule. You don't have to do it tomorrow. Sometimes we're very extreme about behaviors. So, oh my gosh, Rachel, this has been amazing. You're a wealth of knowledge. I love it. Thank you so much. I am going to start wrapping us up to honor your time, but since it's your first time on the Vixen Voice, I love to ask, I kind of made a joke at the beginning that women shy away from sales, but we're actually really good at it. And I do believe that's true, because connection, relationships, all these things we're talking about are feminine energies. So we really just have to tap into who we really are, and it becomes simple. So I love working with my clients on helping them get back into their feminine energy and essence and balancing that with the masculine. So I'd love to ask you, Rachel, when do you feel you're most feminine? Like, when is your feminine energy and power flowing?
This is so interesting to me because I don't really see it as being feminine or masculine. It just is. And so I guess I don't actively like think about that in terms of like sales or life or so I don't know if I have a great answer for that, even though it's a great question,
Yeah.
which is so silly. But I think I do really value connections and relationships, and I think that that is what lights me up. So whether we see that as being feminine or not, and I would say that it is just based on what you said, I'm so extroverted. And so I know when I have connected with someone and I get to know them better or I've made their day brighter, that really is what like success is to me. And that is what makes me feel like I did the right thing. Even if they didn't buy that day or maybe I wasn't able to help them, right?
Yeah.
That connection really is powerful for me.
I love it. I love it. So what color would you put to that energy?
Oh my gosh. um,
Every guest gets asked this.
yeah, no, I These are great. I'm like leaning towards like yellow because it's like
Ooh, I
bright
like
and
it.
warm and like golden and just, I don't know, it feels like sunshiny and positive.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, as we wrap up today, what final words of wisdom or little message do you have for our listeners?
Oh gosh. Well, if you are in business, you are in the business of sales. So don't be
Hmm.
afraid to just have the conversations, right? Sales isn't always straightforward of just asking for something. We often do it all day long, right? Whether it's with our
Yeah.
pets, our spouses, our friends, trying to decide dinner, we're putting out ideas, right, to see how people feel. And so it can make a difference when we realize that we're doing it all day long. So just
Hmm.
don't be afraid to talk to someone new. Don't be afraid to just ask for the sale, follow up with someone. Every interaction you're having is sales. It's not a bad thing as much as we like to think it is. Sales is a good thing and you get to make a difference in someone's life, and that's what matters most.
Love it. Beautiful. And for our listeners out there who want more Rachel, where can they find you?
The best way to find me is on social. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Rachel Morgan Coaching. I believe the links will be also
Hmm.
below. Yep. Okay. And I also do a monthly newsletter. So each newsletter has a different theme around sales and with a bunch of tips and downloads and things and whatnot. So just a really good resource for you to learn more and develop your skills.
Love it. Thank you so much. And as Rachel mentioned, everything's in the show notes, but I know some of you are in your cars listening and you don't have time to pull it up. So that's why we like to share the best way to get in touch with her. And a friendly reminder, if you go to vixengathering.com/podcast and hit subscribe, I just solved your problem because all these amazing resources, contact information for our awesome guest, everything shows up magically in your inbox every Tuesday and Thursday. So that's a great way if you've ever listened to an episode and you're like, oh, I need to go check that out. And of course, we forget because life is busy. Just subscribe and it will show up right there at your fingertips. So, Rachel, thank you so much for this fun convo today. I love that we took a topic that many women find icky and we demystified it and showed how we actually are well built to be good at this and it doesn't have to feel icky. So, for everyone listening, as you know, I always say the world needs more love. Here's how I'm going to challenge you to spread that today. We're talking about sales, but as you go in as the customer, be friendly and kind to the sales associate helping you. Ask their name. See them as a person. This goes two ways, right? A lot of times we have our defense mechanism up and we're going in and we don't want anyone to talk to us. And guess what? We're putting ourselves in our own cage. I love to just try to find joyful conversations everywhere. So I invite you to try the same. It really makes life magical. So everyone, thank you for joining. Rachel, thank you for your awesome tips and can't wait to see what else you bring to the world. All right, everyone, thank you for listening and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you want access to today's show notes, including links to all the resources we mentioned, visit vixengathering.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of The Vixen Voice.